so here's the reason why we use the midpoint formula. Okay, obviously the midpoint formula is used to find the coordinates of the midpoint of a line segment on the coordinate plane. So obviously a line segment has two endpoints. So we have this point, this would be a line segment. And if I wanted to find the midpoint on that line segment, then obviously it's a distance that's halfway between the two endpoints. Okay, and that's what we call the midpoint. Okay? So the formula we use for this is this. And I use M for midpoint. Midpoint formula, again, our two ordered pairs that we use are represented by x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So you're going to have two ordered pairs, just like you did with distance formula, okay? And if I wanted to find the midpoint between these two ordered pairs, I would do this. It's going to be an ordered pair. My answer will be an ordered pair. Okay? And how I do that is I take the two x coordinates, add them together, and then divide by 2. Because obviously I'm taking the halfway point. So I'm going to add the two x coordinates together. So I'm going to add x sub 1 plus x sub 2 and divide by 2 to find this coordinate, the x coordinate of my midpoint. To find the y coordinate of my midpoint, I take and add the two y coordinates together and divide by what? 2. So my midpoint formula is very easy. Take the two x's, add them together, divide by 2. That's my x coordinate of my midpoint. To get my y coordinate of my midpoint, I add the two y's together, divide by 2, and then I get the y coordinate of my midpoint. Alright, so the midpoint will always be an ordered what? Pair. Will be an ordered pair. So let's put that down. The midpoint yes, okay. I sure can. Yep. So to find the midpoint, class, we just have to make sure we understand the midpoint is an ordered pair. Okay? And it has to be, remember, it has to be halfway between the two endpoints. Okay? Alright, let me start on an example, and then we'll see how we can do this. Alright, example 1. This is not example 1, example what? 3? Alright, example 3. Okay, we're going to find the midpoint between these 2 points. Find the midpoint between the points. And the points are, how about -3, -1, and 7, 5. Okay, get started on that. Okay, get started on that. Plug it into the midpoint, and I'll help you out with the rest of it. Okay, guys. All right. First of all, what should we start doing? What should we do with these? Label them as what? What is the -3? X sub what? X sub 1. What's the -1? Y sub 1. X sub 2 and y sub what? 2. Okay. So by labeling them, it makes it pretty easy to plug it into our midpoint formula. So our midpoint formula is again M for midpoint, x sub 1 plus x sub 2, not subtract, divided by 2, y sub 1 plus y sub 2 divided by 2. Let's plug that in. M, okay, x sub 1 is what up there? -3 plus what's the x sub 2? 7 divided by 2, and now let's do our y's. Y sub 1 is what? -1 plus y sub 2 is 5, and divide that by what? 2. Alright, now let's simplify. Now to simplify this, be very careful that you don't just plug it into your calculator as you see it. Because if you do -3 plus 7 divided by 2, what's going to happen? It's going to give you an incorrect answer. Why? It's going to do order of operations, and what will it think you're telling it to do first? If you just put this in your calculator as you see it right now, it's going to divide the 7 and the 2 first. And then it's going to get 3.5. And then it's going to add 3.5 plus -3 and get it. Did anyone get 1/2 or 0.5 as an answer? Because you didn't do it right. You need to do the top first. What's -3 plus 7 become? 4. Now divide 4 by 2. 2 would be the answer. Yes, 2, not 0.5. Because negative 3 plus 7 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Do over here. What's negative 1 plus 5 become? 4 divided by 2.
2.
So our midpoint, the halfway point between those two ordered pairs is 2, 2. Let me show you on the coordinate plane why. You can see a visual, and you can kind of see what I mean by the midpoint. If I were to graph negative 3, negative 1, it'd be over negative 3. Here's the origin, guys, right here. Negative 3, 1, 2, 3, down 1. There's one point of my end point of my line segment. The other is 7, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's one end point of my line segment, and here's the other. We found the midpoint to be 2, 2. Let's see if that makes sense. Does that look like that might be halfway between these 2 points? So that is the what of this line segment?
Midpoint.
The midpoint, which means the halfway point. That means, should this distance be the same as that distance?
Yes.
Yes, it should. So therefore, the midpoint is the halfway point between 2 points on the coordinate plane, or the midpoint of the line segment. And that's how we find the midpoint. The midpoint will always be an ordered pair. Okay? Now let's do one more. Let's have you guys try this one, okay? Make sure it makes sense, and then